You are standing in your kitchen. You open the fridge, you are looking at it, and you have absolutely no idea why you opened it. You close it. You walk back to the other room. And the moment you sit down, you remember, you laugh it off. Everyone does. But what if that moment, that specific, frustrating, embarrassing moment, was not caused by your brain at all? What if the organ responsible for it was 30 inches lower? In March 2026, a team of researchers at Stanford University and the Arc Institute published a study in Nature, the most prestigious scientific journal in the world. The lead researcher, Dr. Christoph Tass, had spent years trying to understand why some people stay razor-sharp at 100 while others begin losing words in their 60s. What his team found completely reframes what memory loss actually is. It does not start in your brain. It starts in your gut. And by the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly how, and more importantly, what you can do about it starting today. I want you to hold on to a question as we go through this. The question is, if forgetting is not a brain problem, then why has medicine been treating it like one for 50 years? The answer to that question is the most important thing in this video, and I promise I will get to it. But first, you need to understand what the Stanford team actually found, because the mechanism they uncovered is precise enough to change how you think about every moment of forgetting you have ever had. The researchers began with a simple observation that has puzzled scientists for decades. Memory decline with age is not consistent. It is wildly variable. Some people are cognitively razor-sharp at 90. Others begin experiencing meaningful memory loss in their late 50s. If aging brains were simply deteriorating the way we assume, the way a machine wears down, the decline would be far more uniform. It is not, which means something other than the brain itself is driving the difference. The Stanford team suspected the gut. They mapped the gut microbiome of mice across their entire lifespan, a high-resolution chart of every bacterial species at every age. And as the mice aged, one bacterial species in particular began to multiply, a species called Parabacteroides goldsteini. In younger mice, it was present but rare. In older mice, it had expanded significantly. The researchers isolated it. They introduced it alone into the guts of young, healthy mice that had been raised without any gut bacteria. And those young mice, with no other microbiome changes, no brain changes, nothing else different, began to show measurable memory loss. Then they did something even more striking. They took young mice and simply housed them in the same cage as old mice. Not genetically modified, not injected with anything. Just living near older mice whose gut bacteria could transfer through shared environment. Within 1 month, the young mice had developed old mouse microbiomes. They performed significantly worse on memory tests, spatial navigation, object recognition, both impaired. The aged gut bacteria transferred to young animals produced cognitive aging. That is not a subtle finding. That is the gut driving memory loss directly. Hold that thought and hold that question I gave you at the start. We are almost at the answer. Now let me explain exactly how it works, because the pathway the researchers uncovered is precise enough to be genuinely useful. When Parabacteroides goldsteini multiplies in the aging gut, it produces molecules called medium-chain fatty acids. As the bacteria expands with age, these fatty acids accumulate. Those fatty acids are detected by immune cells in the gut wall called myeloid cells through a receptor called GPR84. When GPR84 is activated by these fatty acids, the immune cells release an inflammatory signaling molecule, specifically a cytokine called IL-1 beta. That inflammatory signal then does something precise. It impairs the sensory neurons of the vagus nerve, the long nerve we covered in our last video, that carries signals from your gut up to your brain. When those vagal neurons are impaired by IL-1 beta, the signal weakens. The internal sensing signal, researchers call it interoception, arriving at the hippocampus becomes quieter, less clear. And the hippocampus, the region of your brain where new memories are encoded, begins to underperform. The researchers confirmed this by directly reactivating those vagal sensory neurons in old mice with impaired memory. When they did, the cognitive decline reversed. Memory performance improved significantly. So the full chain looks like this. The gut bacteria produced the chemicals. The chemicals activated the immune cells. The immune cells released the inflammatory signal. The inflammatory signal blocked the nerve. The blocked nerve delivered a quieter message to the hippocampus. and a quieter hippocampus encoded fewer memories. That is the full chain. That is what forgetting actually is now. The question I asked you to hold: if forgetting is not a brain problem, why has medicine treated it like one for 50 years? The answer is not conspiratorial. It is structural. For most of medical history, the brain was seen as self-contained. It ran the body. The body did not run it. The brain was command. Everything else was response. And for decades, the brain was also almost completely inaccessible. You cannot biopsy a living brain. You cannot observe it the way you can observe the gut, the blood, the immune system. So when patients came in with memory complaints, doctors looked at what they could measure: brain scans, plaques, tangles, neurotransmitters, and they built a discipline around those measurements. The gut was not in the picture. It was a digestion organ, a plumbing system. That assumption is now being dismantled, one study at a time. The Stanford paper is the sharpest dismantling yet, because it does not just show an association between gut health and memory. It traces the exact molecular steps. It identifies the specific bacteria, the specific molecule, the specific receptor, the specific cytokine, the specific nerve, the specific brain region. That level of precision is what changes a field, and the field is changing. Before I show you the 4 actions that protect this pathway, I want to tell you about a woman I will call Margaret. Margaret is 72. She came to our channel after her son sent her a link to our first video on the gut-brain connection. She had been having what she described as bad months, words disappearing mid-sentence, walking into rooms and going blank. She had been to her doctor. She had been told it was normal aging. She had believed him and tried to accept it. Margaret changed 4 things in her diet over 6 weeks. She wrote to us after 2 months. She said the words were coming back, that she had not gone blank mid-sentence in 3 weeks, that she had started doing the crossword again. Something she had quietly stopped because it had become too frustrating. I cannot promise you Margaret's experience. Every person is different, and none of this replaces medical care from your own physician. Please always speak with your doctor before changing your health routine. But here is the important part. What Margaret changed is exactly what the research points to, and it is simpler than you might expect. Action number 1. Reduce the foods that feed the bacteria driving the problem. The research is consistent here. Ultra-processed foods, refined sugars, and diets high in saturated fat are associated with reduced gut microbial diversity and the expansion of pro-inflammatory bacterial species. Exactly the pattern seen in the aging gut in the Stanford study. A 2025 review published in Molecular Nutrition and Food Research confirmed that diets high in processed foods contribute directly to dysbiosis and the inflammatory cascades that damage the gut-brain axis. This does not mean eliminating everything overnight. It means reducing the processed food load, packaged snacks, fast food, sugary drinks that consistently feeds the wrong species. Action number 2. Consistently eat the foods that feed the bacteria protecting the pathway. A 2024 study published in Frontiers in Nutrition, reviewing 106 separate research papers on gut microbiota and diet, found that fermented dairy products, whole grains rich in fermentable fiber, and polyphenol-rich fruits and vegetables consistently supported microbial diversity and cognitive resilience. The most protective foods across the research: plain yogurt and kefir for fermented dairy, oats, barley, and legumes for fermentable fiber, berries, cocoa, coffee, and dark leafy greens for polyphenols. A separate 12-year prospective study tracking dietary patterns and cognitive outcomes found that metabolites derived from cocoa, coffee, mushrooms, and the microbial metabolism of polyphenol-rich foods were consistently associated with protection against cognitive decline. None of these foods are expensive. None of them are exotic. They are in every grocery store. Action number 3. Protect the gut wall. Think of your gut wall as a border checkpoint. When it is intact, it controls what crosses into your bloodstream and reaches your immune cells. When it is compromised, what researchers call increased intestinal permeability, the border is open. Inflammatory molecules pass through freely. And those are the exact molecules that reach your myeloid cells, activate GPR84, trigger IL-1 beta, and begin the chain that dims your vagus nerve. Extra virgin olive oil contains polyphenols and oleocanthal compounds that support the integrity of the gut lining. Fermented foods with live cultures help maintain the microbial barrier, and dietary fiber, particularly from oats, beans, and vegetables, is fermented by gut bacteria into short-chain fatty acids, especially butyrate, which is one of the primary fuels the cells lining your gut wall use to maintain themselves. A gut wall that holds is a gut wall that decides what reaches your brain. Action number 4. Protect the nerve that carries the signal. Every step in the Stanford chain, from gut bacteria to memory failure, runs through the vagus nerve. IL-1 beta impairs vagal sensory neurons. And when researchers blocked that impairment in old mice, memory recovered. In our last video, we covered 3 methods that directly strengthen vagal tone: slow diaphragmatic breathing, cold water on the face, and daily humming. Each stimulates the vagus nerve through a different physical pathway. Each has measurable effects on heart rate variability in peer-reviewed research. The gut-brain research and the vagus nerve research are not separate topics. They are the same story told from 2 directions. Fix the gut environment and the inflammatory noise diminishes. Strengthen the nerve and the signal gets louder. Do both, and the hippocampus has its best possible chance of doing its job. Let me give you the larger frame. What the Stanford study confirmed is that memory decline is not a fixed biological destiny. It is not simply what happens when your brain gets old. It is, at least in part, a downstream consequence of what is happening in your gut, which means it is, at least in part, something you can influence. The researchers found that young mice exposed to aged microbiomes developed cognitive aging. They also found that when the inflammatory pathway was blocked in old mice, the memory deficit reversed, not partially, significantly. Dr. Thass wrote in the Arc Institute's own summary of the research, "Memory loss is not universal. Some people remain incredibly sharp at 100. The gut may be a key part of why. Sit with that for a moment. The people who stay sharp at 100 may not simply have been lucky with their genes. They may have been, in some consistent and systematic way, protecting a biological pathway that most people are quietly degrading without knowing it. Exists. You now know it exists. Here is what I want you to carry out of this video. You are not forgetting because your brain is broken. You are not forgetting because you are old. You may be forgetting because a bacterial species in your gut is producing a chemical that is dimming signal on its way to the part of your brain that records new memories, and that chemical, that bacteria, that signal, all of it sits downstream of what you eat. You have more influence over this than you have ever been told. So here is your one action for today. At your next meal, not tomorrow, not next week, right now at your next meal, add 1 polyphenol-rich food, a small handful of blueberries, a square of dark chocolate, a cup of coffee or green tea alongside whatever you are already having. One thing, one meal, not a dramatic overhaul. One step. The direction matters more than the size of the step. You are not at the mercy of a forgetting brain. You are in charge of a gut that can be changed. And that changes everything. Quick recap. The Stanford 2026 Nature study traced a precise chain. Aging gut bacteria produce medium-chain fatty acids that activate immune cells in the gut wall, which release a signaling molecule that impairs the vagus nerve, which weakens the signal reaching the hippocampus, which reduces memory encoding. The study was conducted in mice. Human clinical research is ongoing. 4 protective actions, all supported by the research. 1. Reduce ultra-processed foods that feed pro-inflammatory bacteria. 2. Consistently eat fermented dairy, fermentable fiber, and polyphenol-rich foods. 3. Protect the gut wall with olive oil, fermented foods, and fiber. Your gut wall is the checkpoint that controls what reaches your brain. 4. Strengthen the vagus nerve using the 3 methods from our last video. Next video, we are going to talk about the cells inside your body that are accelerating all of this. Cells that should have died but did not, that are sitting in your tissues right now, releasing the exact inflammatory chemicals that damage the pathway we just mapped. Researchers call them senescent cells. Some scientists have started calling them something else entirely. And when you hear what they do, the word they chose will make complete sense. That video is next. The subscribe button is just below, and if someone in your life has been brushing off their memory lapses as just getting old, please share this video with them. It is not just aging, and they deserve to know that. Always speak with your doctor before making changes to your diet or health routine. Everything in this video is for educational purposes only. Take care of yourself, and I will see you in the next one.